Hey guys, we are Team Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Commander Cockings, and it's another Discovery Review Analysis Theorization thing.
Discussion.
Yes.
Discussion. Today's topic of discussion, Samuel brought this up to me. The Shenzhou in the Mirror Universe cannot exist. So what exactly did you mean by that, Commander? Just fill us in and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so this is one that just occurred to me because we've got certain established things in the universes, and they seem to be really referencing the Mirror Universe episodes properly, correctly, throwing that stuff in. But what happened in Enterprise is that we saw the Defiant, which again, obviously, they mentioned in the Discovery episode, going back in time to Enterprise NX-1 era. It completely annihilated every ship that it went against. It was hands down the best thing in the quadrant. 100 years of tech makes all the difference. So the fact in our universe, we developed those technologies naturally. In the Kirk era, we had a Constitution class. That was the pride of the fleet in many respects. And then we evolved from there to refit to B to C to whatever. And therefore the Shenzhou, while its design style is a bit weird, it fits in because it was part of that evolutionary line of ships in the Discovery timeline. But in the Mirror timeline, they were given a Constitution class 100 years earlier. Which means that why on earth would they design? Why would they take from the USS Defiant's memory banks a ship from 80 years in the future that's already obsolete by the time they have a Connie, and build one of those 100 years later? Why would you build a 120-year-old ship in the future? Wouldn't everything be evolutions off a Connie?
Based on the new tech, yeah.
Based on new tech. And it looks the same, except they made the point saying, we've got new transporters. Yes, man, why do all of your corridors and walls look so unbelievably old? So it just occurred to me, and what do you think about this, and does that make any sense?
It does make sense. At the same time, it could be different contractors still making different ships, and used by Starfleet. It's kind of sketchy, but I do agree with you that when the Defiant went back 100 years in the past, it's an NX era, they would use that tech to start establishing new ships to have a superior technology to have a stranglehold on the quadrant, whatever, and really kind of squash the rebels. So I agree with you 100% that the Shenzhou probably shouldn't exist in the Mirror Universe, and that's a good point, because the wireframe of the Defiant, they definitely said that the Mirror Universe that they actually crossed over into is the one where the Defiant went back.
Yes.
When we look at Mirror, because we've had this discussion too, that's a Cage era Constitution class ship that we see, which is older than the Defiant tech. So again,
visually,
if the Defiant went back in that timeline 100 years ago, why would they be using that ship? But that's the whole timeline thing. If I didn't go back in time, could I have given, so and so a thing that is, it's the paradox thing. But with the Mirror Universe episode, it was the first one to come, so it's not necessarily, and it's before the Defiant went back chronologically.
Yes. In
TOS. So,
well, there's two interesting real life things to consider in this. Is that they filmed Mirror first, right? And that established the Mirror Universe baseline. And then, in season 3, in real terms, continuity, so a year later, then the Defiant went back.
Well, the Defiant disappeared in TOS.
Sure.
They didn't state that it went to... Yeah. That was retconned in Enterprise. So.
But you know what I mean? That incident happened after. So, the Mirror Universe... Because again, if time has to start linear once, the A to B starts once, and then things in this part of the future then go back, you've still got to get there first to be able to go back. Then you create the alternate universe situation whereby it goes back, alters the timeline, creates a new line, right? So the Mirror happened first. Okay, Connie, everything is parallel. Yeah, both universes roughly the same. Boom. Then the Defiant went back. That created an alternate line where, and out of all the things I'm happy to retcon, Mirror, it's like 120 years of tech and the ship is identical. Not going to happen. I mean, it could be like an artistic choice of, hey, let's go ultra retro and let's make our, maybe, you know, the Captain Kirk was like, you know what, I really liked that design of that Defiant that we got that changed our history. Let's make our internal look like that. I mean, you could make that argument. It's the most fun, you know.
I wouldn't.
No, it's pushing it to the extreme. Or the tech should be, well, 100 years later. Because even if you don't understand the tech in TOS, the fact is Tucker still managed to turn the ship on, fix the ship, and bring it to full operational, at least full with the crew they had. So while it's still apples to oranges, you understand they're both fruit. It's not like a pocket watch and a smartphone. No, it's a phone and a phone, just a phone that's more advanced. Yeah. So you still understand the circuitry. So while, yes, I don't think they could rip it apart or they could reverse engineer it in a day, it might say take 10 years to work out how it all works. That's fine. Still 100 years later, you know, if I was the Emperor Sato, I would not let the tech get out of my hands for, say, a decade, conquer everyone, and then you know, put the phasers on another ship that you trust and take little pieces and reverse engineer little pieces so the ship is still cohesive. And then maybe when you're older and you've conquered the Empire, then pull it apart and you know, try and build new versions of it and try and build even more better ships.
Yeah. Well, now going back to the Shenzhou for a second, I mean, yeah, they would check the databanks of the Defiant, and historically, the what's the name of the class for that one? The Walker class should exist in the databanks. Now, it could be that it's a easy ship to build. Maybe it's cheaper construction. Maybe it's proven itself in the historical files as being a reliable ship, something like that. So yeah, why not build it? We'd update it a bit, so it wouldn't look exactly the same. It would have more modern tech, more modern weapons. Could be that that's the way the designers would go. It was just an easier build than a Constitution class ship or a larger ship.
I think easy way to compare it, and again stay with Trek, is that it's like saying people in Nemesis era, so right at the end of TNG, said, ooh, let's build another fresh Miranda class because they're very reliable. Let's build a ship from 100 years ago because they're reliable.
Well, you would build a Miranda class, but you'd update it with new nacelles.
I think they'd rather build Akira's, Sabres, Springfields, New Orleans. I mean, you wouldn't go 100 years ago. You'd go 50 years.
No, but you'd use the Miranda style design with the low star nacelles and the upper torpedo pod, but
that becomes the Akira.
Yes and no.
You wouldn't build the predecessors. It's like you wouldn't go back and build NXs in the TOS time because lol, it's easier. No, you'd build more Connies or versions of the Connie. But
you got to think that their construction methods 120 years ago might not be able to construct Constitution class ships or anything close to it, even reverse engineering the tech. So they're going to keep building the standard fleet that they already have the framework for until they can fit that in. So it might be 50, 60 years. So there might still be one or two that.
But this is 100 years.
I know that.
Full century.
I know, but they never stated how old the Walker class was, because when Michael Burnham came on board, she did. Captain Giorgio did say it's an old ship at that point. So it could be that it was just at the end of that development cycle. It already the blueprints have been drawn up. They've started development of it. Why not continue to build it?
What, in the NX era?
To still buffer up the fleet. It could be on the drawing boards, because we know that a lot of times ships are on the drawing boards for years before they're actually the construction begins.
Yeah, but it being
development continues to the point where they're getting to the point where they want to build it.
That's a hell of a stretch, given that it's 3 times bigger. They hadn't worked with the Federation yet. I mean, yes, when the Federation's formed, right at the end of the whatever, because we know they're just going to kill building NXs. They weren't even developing new ships. It was, right, we need to crank up more NXs. They say that. It's like the NX-07. They even the Mirror Universe, there's like 9 NXs. That's the ship that's their big fleet. You know, that's what they've got.
Yeah.
I love the idea that Shinzo's like 35 years old by the time we hit Discovery, 40 years old. So yeah, it's certainly in between. But I just don't think, I think you would try and look towards the future. Even if you take that rough design shell, you would use Connie engines, you would use all the stuff you've learned. You wouldn't say, because it worked, and the Shenzhou is still beyond their building methods by that logic. It's just 50 years, and 50 again. If you said build a phone 50 years ago, you couldn't. Okay,
yeah.
So I like that pause tech, but then also you'd have the entire library of how you built the ship in the databanks. So you would just read, how do we build the ship? Okay, we need this,
but you would need to build that infrastructure to build those items. That's
why I say 10 years makes sense.
Time.
That's why I say 10 years makes sense, because 10 years is a long time, especially when you've got the entire data bank, which has literally an A to Z instruction guide.
If you want to use the phone as a perfect example, you send this phone 100 years back in time.
But that doesn't work, because we didn't have space travel 100 years ago. We didn't have phones 100 years ago.
We had industrial. It's the industrial age. We still have factories. We still have foundries. You take this thing apart, you examine how it's made, and you still have to make the technology to build the lithium batteries, to build the circuit boards. That infrastructure would take time. And you got to jumpstart. You got the thing here that works. You got to take it apart and figure it out. And that's going to take a lot of time just in the development and the stage of taking this thing apart and actually figuring out how it works, reverse engineering it. That's going to take a long time in and of itself for someone 100 years ago. Now, I know, we don't have space travel or whatever 100 years ago. We just don't have it now. But I'm just saying, in comparison, it's the same thing. Sending something 100 years back in time, the amount of technology that happens in 100 years is phenomenal. So
yes,
if you sent this phone back 100 years ago, they wouldn't be able to make it for at least...
But that's mostly because they haven't even developed computer chips yet. Like, they already have warp drive. Warp 7 engines on the way. I mean, they're only one.
They didn't have the Duotronic computers during the NX era, and that's a big step in technology.
True, but that's not required in building things. You know, if you can build an NX, and you've also got the Vulcans who know how to build things. I mean, I get that, but it's, you know, you're saying this is like going back to the steel age and say go back to cavemen, that jump and say, okay, now build steel. They're like, I have no idea.
Do a car.
But yeah, but it's close to a car.
Send a modern day car back to the first Model T factory. They'd be like, how the hell are we going to build the circuit boards for the computers?
But they would understand the car mechanical, all the car mechanical they'd understand, because they have the same principles. They would say, damn, we can't replicate the chips because that hasn't been invented, but we can build this car again of maybe lesser materials, but we can build this now because we understand it. So it's not...
You wouldn't be able to construct the same strength materials to make the engine that can produce the combustion that could go as fast as the modern car.
They also give you a manual saying how to build steel and how to build carbon fibers. So
true, but then you got to build that infrastructure. You got to build those industries.
So 10 years,
which are separate. It would be more than 10 years.
But you got the entire empire. You've got an entire empire of worlds with slave races.
That I agree with, but
and the knowledge of all that technology, and you've also enslaved Vulcans. So they at Mirror Universe had more tech. That's why they had shields. That's why they had phasers. That's why they had torpedoes. That's why they had warp. Whatever, you know, they already have all that technology. That's remember they conquered the empire by having Vulcan technology, which is already more than Enterprise by God knows how many years.
For that technology leap that you're talking about, I kind of agree with you. That would be like sending this phone back to the 1980s when the first cell phones came out. They'd be like, okay, well, we still can't really do that. It'll take a little bit of time, but we do have the infrastructure to build computer chips and microchips.
Like I say, we
just need to refine it.
Yeah, with a diagram showing exactly how to do it as well. Like, okay, well, this is really, really advanced. Actually, great example, literally from Trek is Star Trek 3, building transparent aluminum. They took the formula back over 100 years, 200 years. Star Trek 4. And they managed to build it with the same infrastructure because they already built the plastics. It was just a very, very better version. He understood it. He built it in a week.
No, they didn't use transparent aluminum. They used the thick aluminum that they had available, if you see it coming in, because that's all they had. That transparent aluminum took years and years to develop. He even said so. It would take years just to understand the dynamics of this.
But he still got it, though.
He saw where it would go, but yeah, he still said it would take years to even master.
I thought they at least used a bit of it.
No, they didn't, because they were using the thick shit that they were sliding in.
Oh, no, that was it was his payment, wasn't it? It was help us with what you have. Here's the thing. Yeah.
I forget the exact quote, but he's like, it'll take years to understand the complexity of this matrix, or whatever. Yeah, it will. It'll take you that long to understand it. Then it'll take you even longer to develop the framework to build it and make sure. Yeah,
but obviously the difference being they'd have Scotty explaining it every step of the way at the time to then say.
If he was there, but he was only there for a day or two, and they just...
No, I know, but we're talking about the Define, and it's like all the data, all the understanding, but probably since Federation's formed, all the other races, you know, they've got the Vulcan way of building tech in the database, they've got Andorian's way of building tech, you know, they can also mishmash, you know, Klingons, I mean, they've got all those, they've got D7 designs, you know, I just think, like I said, go back to the very start of it, I don't see them building a ship that looks identical on the inside and the outside and the inside. There's no reason whatsoever for it to be an inside. You're saying that They went from whatever they had to TOS tech, and then meandered all the way back to Discovery tech, and it still be in Discovery tech era.
No, I agree with you on that point. I'm just trying to make an interesting argument for argument's sake, because they still had the lateral vector transporters on the Discovery, which were just upgraded, right? Whereas they had the real transporters from the Defiant for over 100 years.
Yep.
So, yes, I agree with you on that point that the Shenzhou should not exist in the mirror universe. But I'm just making it an interesting argument point for all the viewers out there.
See, what you're saying is I wish I've often said, I guess maybe not to you, but I wish I could take pictures of my eyes and also pull out of my brain what I'm imagining, because when I imagine scripts, I can picture all the scenes. I would love this thought experiment to go ahead and we could build it in more real terms, because what you're saying is, okay, here to here, this point can't exist Shenzhou, but how long does it take to reverse engineer this TOS tech in the 100 years? And then, the most exciting thing, if you say 30 years, what do designs look like between those 2 points when you're starting to include technology? Like, okay, I understand the deflector should be this big, that's an easy piece of tech you can do, or plasma conduits, okay, this is the material, we've already got it, let's use it. But then how do designs then jumpstart when you don't really fully understand it, but you're trying to utilize that tech? Where do the designs go for 50, 40 years? I would love to see Enterprise Annex 1 designers designing what they think looks good TOS designs, but post-TOS. How do you skip TOS from NX mindset? I'd love to see those designs.
Interestingly enough, you got a brilliant scientist who gets a hold of 100-year advanced technology and starts not building on the modern tech, but building on the tech of that time, developing that new technology forward. I mean, a lot of brilliant minds would be able to do that. Again, they might not have infrastructure really make it work right away, but they got 100-year jump start on the thinking and the development process. So why start with what you have? Start with the new tech that just showed up and go, let's build on that. Well, I think that's why the Defiant wireframe looks the way it does, because they were like, let's add to that.
Yeah, well, it's like saying now we've skipped the Warp 8 engine, we've now got it. Let's try and work out the Warp 9 engine or phasers. Let's increase the power. We now know, all this tech. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I also argued that the Discovery, which again, weird that it would exist in the mirror universe, should be 100 years more advanced, or at least, like you say, with that pause, at least TOS advanced, and then TOS plus. And again, give us 1 decade of technological advancements. We can go incredible places. Give us 5 years. 100 years. You cannot think 100 years ago. I mean, people who are 100 now, you say 100 years ago, they'll be like, wow, that's a long time. Look at what they've seen. So nothing should look the same. Nothing should feel the same. And that could be a great chance to make... This is why the mirror universe, I think, has a lot more freedom, because they could have taken TOS designs. Imagine if you'd seen TOS update designs in Discovery originally, rather than their reboot look. And then you could have these be the TOS mirror plus awesome. 100 years. It'd be like, oh, that's such a weird but interesting but more advanced look. You now have, wow, they did holograms, because also they're conquering races, they take technology, they can do holograms real time. Wouldn't that be cool? The first time you see a hologram across the universe, say, wow, view screens, they've now got holographic windows, they've now got holographic people walking around. That's so cool, advanced technology. Wow, they can spore drive, that would have been amazing to see.
Yeah.
Didn't do it, but...
Yeah, well, I agree with you on that point for sure, but... Yeah, this has been an interesting thought experiment. Anyway,
yeah, I really wish.
And yeah, like I said, going back to my point, I want to wrap this up quick, but going back to my point of building on the new tech that just popped into your universe, 100 years advanced. Yeah, a lot of people out there are thinking, yes, but you still have to understand it. Well, you can. You got data banks full of information on how that led up to that. You got the whole history of Zephyr Cochrane working on the Warp 5, and then
you just start reading
the incremental exactly. You get somebody like Scotty, or Einstein, somebody that's a genius, and they could literally jump on that. It might all be theoretical at that point, but you got 100-year head start on everybody. So yeah. So I agree with your points.
So I'm so excited to see mirror Discovery in the Prime Universe. I mean, I doubt they'd be at TNG tech level, because that's a hell of a jump, but somewhere random in between, certainly several steps above. Where is that going to be? And that should be really doing some bad things in our timeline if it's out firing. I mean, also to have more torpedo banks, more phaser banks. I mean, it should be triple as arm just natively, from science ship to everyone's a warship. Simple thing is right. Bullets. I mean, why are we using 9mm? Let's only use 50 cals. Okay, let's only use bigger torpedoes with more antimatter so that every punch has more of a punch. If you're a war race, maybe you do that. Especially if you've got slave races building torpedoes on other planets. You can just say, this one planet, build just torpedoes,
The problem with that is resources and just practicality. I mean, I wouldn't want to be carrying around a 50 caliber because you're wasting more lead per bullet, which you want to spread out over a larger empire so you make smaller bullets. And I don't want to have the ricochet of a 50 caliber pistol. So, I mean, it's just practicality in that case and resources, whether you have the resources to make those bigger things.
But I think as an emperor, I then say, right, Poland, you got screwed over in the World War II. Poland, you're now just a building 50 cal state. Because I'm your emperor. That's all you guys do now. You eat, sleep, build 50 cal rounds. That's all you do. Because I'm an emperor. So you can... Or just Vulcan slaves, I hate you. Build 50 cals for the next 10 years. I mean, or the entire Vulcan conglomerate of 10 worlds, I mean, there's, again, it's all sci-fi, it's all make-believe. So it's such a potential opportunity there, and I think we said we're okay to retcon Mirror Mirror as the original Mirror universe. This is now the Ultimate Mirror universe, because they have so much more creative freedoms that way, and both still would work. And then you're asking, well, which one goes to the Mirror universe in Defiant, in DS9? Well, who the hell knows, because they both said there's no cloaking device in the Mirror universe, but they also have them as well. That's just a silly continuity error. Ships like the Vorcha then become small as anything once you have Discovery ships. I mean, again, these jumps don't make as much sense.
There's a technology one for one right there, though. They took the Defiant plans into the Mirror universe and built a Defiant, which they shouldn't have really been able to do as quickly. I mean, sure, it wasn't
I think
fully completed and work.
Yeah.
Or working properly, but it was the same. Yeah. I think that was a little bit stretched, the practicality and the actual realism of that, but...
We knew the Klingons built and designed the same ships, so the tech level was there, and the Rebels were just stealing tech from other people.
But I don't think it would have looked exactly like the Defiant.
They built it to look identical because they knew it worked. It was literally a one for one. They had the ability to build it because it was a cohesive same timeline. They said, right, this works, let's build it. Because it works. It's like I would imagine the Hoshi might say, right, build a second Defiant. Let's build it one for one. Even if we don't know how it works, let's build it one for one. If we can have two, even more powerful. I wouldn't do that. I would probably keep the single flagship working, but hey, every Emperor's different. Cool conversation. Love the Star Trek canon. It's so flexible and also not. And let us know what you think of this theory. Should the Shenzhou exist? How could it exist? Let us know, seriously, how could it exist and look the same? I know it's simply the reason of because they've got the sets and they want to redress them, and the simple being audiences understand it. Doesn't mean that's what makes sense in the universe. So let us know, and comment, subscribe, all those great things. And anything else, Stuart, they can do?
And if you want to help us out, you can definitely do that. We make more videos for you about ships, about reviews, about theories. I love the theory ones. The discussion ones are fun. Things like that, like this video. If you want to help us do that, you can do that by clicking our Patreon link in the description below and heading over there, helping us on a monthly basis, like $1 a month, $5 a month, whatever. You won't probably miss it, but it helps out great on our end to actually give us the time to do this stuff for you guys, because we love doing it. Or head on over to trekyards.com and do a one-time donation as well. So anyway, guys, until next time, if you can help us out that way, or if you just want to share this around, that also helps us out. So please do that. And we will see you in the future with what we should send this information back. I wish I could send this back 20 years. So this is what you're going to be doing. And we could have 20-year build up to Trekyards.
Well, yeah, it's like if I gave my old computer back to myself, I could make everything better from the start. Be cool.
Right? All right, guys. See you later. Bye.
Okay.